Lucchetta narrowly beat out Burns, continuing to deny him his first win of the season. However, David's consistency leaves him dangerously close to Manuel. Small slip-ups will have big consequences for either competitor. Imola will likely see a huge battle for track positions, so will qualifying be the decider today? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 4 of the Absolute Beginners League Formula Neagle, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Imola has seen a resurgence of attention in the racing world thanks to F1's recent return in the past year. Let's head to our track guide to learn more about it. Welcome to the Autodromo Internacional Enzo e Dino Ferrari, but most race fans know this place as simply Imola. This circuit in the northern part of Italy has seen some of the highest highs and lowest lows in motorsports history. The various tragedies that have marred the track left no choice but to alter it in the name of safety. While it originally featured mostly fast, sweeping corners, its modern 3-mile or 5-kilometer version is punctuated by tricky chicanes and incredibly technical turns. iRacing includes the Grand Prix layout and a moto version, which adds one more chicane to the front stretch. Tamburello is perhaps the most notorious of the corners for claiming the life of multi-time world champion Ayrton Senna when it was still a single breathtaking turn. Now the triple apex not only offers potential passing opportunities, but catches out drivers quite frequently. While heavy braking zones are everywhere, because few places allow the cars to get up to speed, overtaking is generally seen as an exercise in frustration. As if to almost counteract this quality, the track itself is situated in a gorgeous public park and sends the drivers through the beautifully calming Italian countryside. It also includes a fair bit of elevation change in which the track is split between the higher up back half and the lower first portion. It's no wonder that this place still proves popular with drivers and fans in spite of its difficulties in history. The Tifosi keep returning each and every time the sound of engines roar among the trees, and who can blame them? Well, DJ, we've seen modern F1 cars still have a hard time trying to pass here, even with DRS, but what about the skippies?
Well, Joe, if the last couple of seasons we've come to Imola have taught us anything, it's that we can actually see some pretty decent passing around here, mainly on that main straightaway, the run all the way from Ravazza down to the Tamburello chicane. That's a very draft-heavy area, and we've seen a lot of drivers try to position their cars to be second in line coming off of Ravazza to be able to take full advantage of the draft. We've also seen a little bit of passing take place in the run downhill from Variante Alta into Ravazza. Although that's a little bit for the more aggressive style of driver out there. Now, in terms of areas drivers are going to have to watch out for, be careful about, well, it's pretty much the whole track. It's not exactly an easy track, and even in these slower skippies, drivers are constantly sawing at the wheel to keep things running. Acqua Minerale, always a very, very tough corner. That downhill double apex right-hander climbing back up the hill at the end of it. Piratella, with the less downforce on these cars, is a little bit more of a featherish corner, trying to make sure they nail it exactly right, and even getting down into Ravazza, making sure they can carry as much speed as possible. It's a track that's really going to keep drivers on their toes no matter what is up ahead of them.
And right now, what is up ahead is still plenty of the championship, as the F1 driver standings only sees 8 points between Burns and Lucchetta. Just Jonk, who's been quick here today, he could maybe get back into this because he's looking very fast both in qualifying and warm-up, but he's still 36 points behind. Johan van Belt and Josh Brain split by a mere 3 points for 4th and 5th, and could see them swap around after today is over. What about the F2 standings?
Well, it's a little bit more spaced out at the top there, with Ludwig Sauer having a 12-point margin over Christopher Giros, but Taylor Reeder, who's had a very impressive start to the season, only a point behind Giros. And Joe, look at how tight that battle across the board is for second place. Reeder a point off of Giros. Neptune only 3 points back, and Lucal only 6 points back. So it is a absolute slugfest here in those F2 standings.
Fantastic to see. Now, in the team's championship for this series, two stupid dogs have started to pull ahead of Compact and Evolve Motorsports. In fact, Evolve is probably more concerned about losing that third place, as they've both got the Video Browers Racing team and the Street Trends team one within 5 points of that Evolve Motorsport team. So they've got to be consistent and finish well today, or else they could slip out of the podium positions. DJ, why don't you run us down the race details for today's event?
Well, Joe, as always, we are out here in the Skip Barber Formula 2000 cars, and as we were talking about that championship, drivers are going to have to get hot on it because we are in the 4th of 5 rounds. That's right. It's a very, very short season, and remember, there are no drop weeks, so every point is of the essence. Now, it's a 40-lap race here today. Drivers currently out on track for a 15-minute open qualifying session, and it is an open setup with a fuel limit. So, as always, we will see a pit stop over the course of the race. And then this is the one thing that separates this series and makes it especially fun. We're in for a standing start today.
And open qualifying, because as you can tell, the drivers have been forming some trains out there, and right now that's put David Burns back at the top. Jonk, who was briefly up at the top, finds himself slotted back down now after they've had some clean laps, and he's going to have to hustle to move back towards the front. But Special currently holds the 2nd position. Ludwig Sauer, who's actually towing along Burns, has also been quick, and he's got half a tenth to make up to overtake Burns. It's still possible as we ride on board with David. He's going to get a nice bit of slipstream onto the main straight.
Yeah, and this is one of those sort of draft trains that we'll see develop during the race, and it's something that we see a lot during qualifying for viewers who are not usually tuning into this series. Very, very courteous in the way they do it. You see Burns slipping by there, setting a personal best time, and I was going to say he's fastest, but Young says, no, that's going to be mine. Young about a tenth of a second faster than anybody else on circuit right now.
Wow, and Jonk used that slipstream in the warm-up to get his fastest time there, too. So clearly, I mean, we don't talk about it a whole lot, but utilizing that slipstream is a skill. It's almost kind of Talladega-esque of knowing how to use it to your advantage the best way possible, maximum advantage.
Exactly, Joe. And one of the things that you really don't think about when you're just watching it is you have to time it just right, especially on that longer straight like the run from Ravazza down to Tamburello. You really have to time that just right so you're not lifting off the throttle at the wrong place. You're able to keep flat out. You have to keep that good distance to the car in front of you. So it's very, very much a skill.
One of the few drivers that have yet to set a time, Lodin, who's having some trouble out of Ravazza 1 and trouble through Ravazza 2 on top of things. Now he gets it going, and the Scandinavian is going to hit the line. Let's see if he kept it clean, because the first lap through looks like it did not count. He just wants one on the board at this stage. There's the timing line. No, he had an off track somewhere around there, so he's got to continue back around.
And here comes Pete Blade, and let's see if he's able to put a time down and get it to count. Doesn't look like it either, so a lot of drivers struggling with some track limits here as we're going to jump back to that David Burns group.
Sauer now is the one who's going to get the tow. He's also giving one to Jonk, and that's Eric Lukal back behind them, and Podacek, the last in the group, out of Ravazza 2. And onto the straight. Burns actually pulling away a little bit from the likes of Sauer. Let's see if that gives Burns a higher spot than 5th. He crosses the line. It's a 2:04.1. That'll put him back up at the very top. Sauer goes quicker, but he's in 5th. Jonk also does. He's in 3rd as Haflidaisen on his own. No slipstream for the number 81, and he's ahead by a little less than a tenth.
If I am Burns, Lukal, or Jonk, I am very, very scared of the times that 81 is putting down. We saw him run some super fast times during qualifying or during practice, so Haflidaisen really on something here.
Whoa, a marker is in the sand now as we watch this group work their way through Tosa. checking to see some of our other drivers that still need to put a time down. Jan Mild has set 4 non-laps, incredibly. Looks like behind him I can see Peter Stipek improving into 13th. Potacek up to Piratella. You talked about timing it. He's a little ways back, maybe a little too far back though.
Yeah, I think that may just be a hair off of what he really wants to get. He may get a little bit of draft effectiveness coming down some of the longer straights, but it's certainly not going to do as much as he would like. But he's still being able to handle the car pretty well. Looks like the setup is pretty much under him. Let's see now how he handles the Variante Alta here. Diving down under the bridge. Big whack on those big curves. Handles that rebound from the suspension very well.
Did lose him time though, as he definitely will want to carry as much momentum as possible. We're gonna head up to that front group now, still being led by Burns, who has been pushed down to 4th, Zauer down to 7th, and Yonk stays in P3. They're coming out towards the timing line, and the first one across, David Burns, his 2:04.147 becomes a 2:03.9, and that is good enough for 3rd place. Behind him, Zauer with a 2:04.2 actually falls down to 5th, and it appears that Just Yonk did not improve.
Yeah, I was watching on board with Just on that last lap. It looked like out of the last corner, out of Ravazza 2, Ludwig Sauer had a little bit of a bobble, and that caused Just to check up ever so slightly. And so I think that's what cost him those couple of tenths that he really needed to get up to that top spot.
Looking through the rest of the field, and Jan Mild. Let's see if this one will count. He's got some help from Stipek as well, as he crosses. No, another lap where he's failed to stay within the track limits. And Thomas Kick behind him also doesn't make an improvement on his time. Looks like Gruel will, and that gets him up to 19th. So the 23 finds some speed in that one. So does Timmy Nylander. And the 22, just saw him go across, and he is up to a 2:05.497.
Indeed he is. We keep watching Stipek here as he and his teammate make their way through the Villeneuve chicane. Wow! There he goes around.
Oh, and takes someone with him, unfortunately. Not sure who that was. But that ruins both their qualifying laps. And considering the time it takes to get around here, they might only be able to start another flyer. Still, Klaas Lodin is not going to be able to set a time. Boy, I didn't really think this is going to be a case of track limits determining some of the starting order, but I guess I should have paid closer attention to real life where that was the case.
Indeed, and really and truly, Joe, where a lot of these drivers are picking up those off tracks, it's very similar to what we see in real life. It's running wide at the exit of corners. Piratella is a big key of that, but we're going to check back in on that leading quad group right now as they cross the line. Let's see what everybody's got. Haflidace and Yonk is up to the top.
A 2:03.5. He has a quarter of a second over Haflidazen, but it took him a slipstream to do that. Haflidazen a 2:05.4, so he does not improve. We're looking at Frederick Neptune, strangely far down. He's only had a single lap that is counted, and this is going to be his last attempt as we are underneath the lap time taken that it needs to get around here. So these drivers who are now going past the line will only have one more attempt.
It is really now or never time, but let's check back in on Grule, able to put in a pretty decent time on that last time to come out 20th. Now it's all down to just keeping the car as straight as possible as he makes his way down this curving front straightaway.
Grule across, and this one not going to count, unfortunately for him. So Timmy Nylander is next in the number 22. And looks like he actually goes quicker, up to 10th, and that was without slipstream too.
It's a good lap there from Timmy. He's going to be very, very pleased with that and able to get one more in. Here comes Simon Zamolo now. He's very slow, so this is not going to be a good one for the Italian driver.
Another driver, only two drivers that have not set a time at all. Pete Bladon, who takes that number 7 down to the timing line. Will the 5th time be a charm? Yes, a 2:08.7. Will at least get him on the board, but only in 31st.
Still have time to get one more under his belt if he wants it. Now here comes Alexander Wilford, currently sat 18th. That's a good top 20 starting position with a big draft track like this. Just about anything can happen with that, but can he improve? Yes, he can with a 2:04.583. That'll bump him up the order.
Into ninth, Thomas Kick will be next. He's way far down for him, and he's not going to have that one count. Last chance as Byfeld crosses, also fails to set a time. David Burns, faster still, a 2:03.7. He'll be on the front row as Yonk does not improve.
Yeah, I think that one was a little bit of courtesy there, Young, trying to get what he could from Burns and them doing likewise. There you go with Lukel and Zauer, neither able to improve on that last lap, so they will start off in 4th and 6th provisionally.
Checkered flag is out. Giros goes up to a 2:04.4. That puts him in 10th. Neptune up to 6th. And Josh Brain way down in 22nd. Unfortunately, Solander goes to 25th. Steve Durr does not improve. Lucetta does, but it's only 6th place. And our championship leader could be under threat today.
Could be. Here comes Kai Alpstead to the line. Alpstead able to improve just by a couple of tenths of a second there. He'll start off in 28th. Pete Thomas now coming to the line. The Canadian driver hoping to improve, not able to do so there. He'll be in 33rd.
Grula is going to get 23rd because of that 2:05.7. So in the mid-pack for him, Zamolo will be up next as he flies through the double apex Ravazza. The 35 has a quickest time of a 2:05.2, good enough for 19th right now.
Indeed, hoping to do a little better here. Coming to the line, taking that big cut of the track to try to minimize the amount of time you're going forward. Here he comes. A good up from Simone Zamolo there with a 2:04.8. That will bump him up the order into 15th.
Leydon goes to a 2:08.3, half a second quicker, but he stays put in position. Loden doesn't get a time in. I believe Anderson is not going to set a time. Then we've got Byfeld followed by Burns and Yonk. Now these three are on flyers. Byfeld though is going to abandon it. Burns is coming down to see if he can take the pole away from Yonk, but he's the one giving the tow. Who's it going to be? The 2:03.7 becomes a 2:03.4, and that will put him on the pole. Yonk replies with 2:03.442. They are separated by 23 thousandths of a second.
Goodness gracious. Well, we have seen so many times over the course of this season, it's going to be a big battle up front with Burns and Yonk sitting on that front row.
Don't forget about Lucetta. We'll start from 6. You talked about the draft can keep you in play. Qualifying is finished after that. We'll get to that starting order here in just a moment, but certainly fascinating to see how things wound up with that slipstream along the front stretch, offering a lot more than I anticipated in this qualifying session. Again, round 4 out of 5, so you cannot make mistakes. There are no drop weeks to save you. And David Burns is looking quite handy to try and overhaul Lucetta if he can follow up that qualifying performance with a good race performance. Seconds hit 0. Checkered flag falls officially. And our grid is now set. Let's go through that starting order. David Burns has put it on the pole here today. Joost Jonk will be in second with Michael Hofledason in third. Eric Lukel starts on the outside of row 2 with Saunders in 5th and Lucetta in 6th. And it's Frederick Neptune 7th, Ludwig Zauer 8th, and Josh Dancy starting 9th. Andrew Leach rounds out the top 10.
Alexander Wilford will be starting off 11th, followed by Christopher Giros in 12th. Series organizer Wojciech Potacek will be 13th, followed by Timmy Nylander and Simone Zavolo to round out your top 15. Steve Durr will start off in 16th, followed by Andrea Spizzale in 17th, Christopher Kirk 18th, Nick Cardy 19th, and Ryan Walker in 20th.
21st goes to Stipek with Brain in 22nd. You've got Grula in 23rd and McMullen in 24th. Andre Solander in the quarter century mark. Mild, good enough for 26th. And to the inside of the next row, it's Bernardi. Alpstead at 28th. Thomas Kick in 29th. And 30th goes to Luden. Last few, everybody got times in. Anderson, Blaydon, Thomas, Van Emmerseel, and Byfeld. With that, The drivers continue to grid up. Just a few moments left here before we are going. And we have to wonder who will fall victim to the notorious Tamburello chicane, which often causes problems, especially in big fields such as this. But this group is known for clean racing. Can they avoid the chaos that tends to erupt? I think Haflidason will be the last one to put himself on the grid. Hopefully he starts there. There, we get him out there. So as we wait for the lights to come up, the engines now start to rev. There's the red lights. And the green flag is out off the line. Everybody trying to get in line immediately to pick up the slipstream down to that chicane, hoping they can have a chance to attack, but Burns leads them all, and fanning out to the inside. Jonk takes a peek, so does Haflidason. Lukel decides to stay to the outside. So far, so good as they all wind into the opening chicane. I'm not seeing any wrecks amongst the group.
No, it looks pretty clean all the way up through, Joe. So that is through Tamburello just fine. Big fan out there in the back. Haflidason still in third, just behind Jonk and Burns.
Well, if the slipstream offered that much in the qualifying, I have to wonder if this is going to be a fuel game here today, with drivers potentially waiting behind. Some side-by-side action down into Tosa. One car slipping off a little bit. That's Podacek side-by-side with Garros, as Wilford was the one we saw in 11th who went off track.
Yeah, Garros trying to get very, very aggressive there with Wojciech Podacek going down into Tosa. Not exactly the place that I would normally expect to see overtaking, but we've got a big hit in down into Piratella.
Not the place that we thought that we would have problems. That was Podacek along with Nylander, I see, off the track. We'll go back to that a little bit later. Already they're heading towards Alta at the front, with Burns ahead of Jonk, ahead of Haflidason.
Everybody keeping it nice and clean through here. Now, this is really a one-lane chicane, nowhere to go. You've got to watch your track limits there on the exit of Alta that you out. But as we are so used to seeing these leaders just working on gapping themselves right here and trying to turn this into a three-car race up front.
Yeah, a little bit of battling in the back through there, but otherwise everybody gets through Alta, down into Rivazza. Now we finally see the slipstream open up on the run to Tamburello. Burns gets himself a gap over Jonk, but Jonk is under attack from Haflidason, who already pokes his nose to the inside. The track weaves back and forth. You'll have to pick your position carefully. Haflidason has to take another draw of the slipstream to get himself the speed. He gets pinched down to the inside. They're both now pulling on David Burns. Jonk to the outside, Haflidason to the inside, but they back out of it behind them. Saunders gets himself up into fourth.
And look what that battle has really done there. It's allowed for Saunders to catch up a lot. Youst Jonk, though, having a look to the inside, going into Villeneuve. Not used to seeing passing going into this second chicane. Burns is going to let him by there. If that compromises Jonk ever so slightly on his corner exit, allows for Burns to get a little bit closer if he wants it. Looking around the outside of Tosa, not going to do it. Shuts the door a little bit on Haflidason, and that may leave him vulnerable to an attack from Saunders.
I think Youst Jonk is happy to lead, but is David Burns happy to run second? Considering his fuel-saving strategy as he often runs, I suspect that this might be by design. Our front group, for the time being, has 8 cars in it, and critically, it goes back to Lucetta, Burns' championship rival.
Well, and there we take a little bit of a wider shot as they come up through Agua Minerale. And for Lucetta, I have to say, traveling in the back of this pack may not be the worst thing in the world for him. That's a lot of cars in front of him, breaking up the dirty air. He'll be able to save a lot of fuel, maybe go for a little bit of an overcut.
Small correction for myself. That's 6th place for Lucetta. We've got 2 cars that have messed up the timing and scoring for us, that have taken toes into the pits. A little bit of a poke from Haflidason on Burns on the wrong side of the track, though. He'll get back into line. Nobody trying to go side by side through Rivazza this time.
Exactly. Now let's see here if Haflidason has sort of learned his lesson from the last time. Whoa! Very, very wide coming out of Ravazza 2 there. Well, as I was saying, in terms of this draft, you really don't want to poke your nose out until you get to the start-finish line because of the curving nature of this straightaway. If you try to poke your nose out where Haflidason did last time, it can really come back to bite you because of how the track curves, but he's going to have a look now, trying to come up the inside of Burns. That's Saunders coming up to have a little bite at the apple as well. They're almost 3 wide going into the corner. Haflidason not going to be able to get it done on Burns. Compromises his second part through the chicane. Is Saunders going to have another bite at the apple here?
So the drivers have been trying to employ some different strategies there with the front stretch, but so far it's not a slam dunk on a pass. So that'll make it really interesting to watch and see who tries to bide their time and who is going to try and get the track position. Behind them, they've got a bit of a gap back to, is that, no, that is Leach catching up. So Leach, Dancy, and Zauer, who are in 7th, 8th, and 9th, could get themselves involved if they don't battle side by side like you see them back there now. Leach is going to give it up, so Dancy into 7th.
Yeah, just able to get it wound back up as they come out of Piratella. There again, you see that is Rhys Saunders having a very aggressive look up to the inside of Michael Haflidason. Not really, I think, trying to go for a move, just really trying to get into Haflidason's head here and force him into a mistake.
Single file for our top 6 yet still. Now, we do have a lone wolf back in 10th. Alexander Wilford has been caught out with nobody to have fun with, so he may slip back into the clutches of 11th a little later on. We'll keep an eye on that. I think, well, let's see how the slipstream goes here. And after this, why don't we take a glance at that opening wreck through Piratella that involved Wojciech. Try and figure out what exactly happened. Someone must have slipped up and spun in front of the field. Here we go. Burns does want to be back in the front. He's going to use the run, and he's going to pull along Haflidason. Is Just actually going to fall back to 4th, maybe? Saunders thinks about 3 wide. He is going to go 3 wide. This is all for P2. Jonk has to slot back in the 4th position.
Oh, but Young's not done. That was a very, very squirrely exit there for Rhys Saunders. He had a look, Young did, around the outside of the end of Tamburello. Now looks to the inside coming into Villeneuve. Thinks better of it, and now they're just going to stay in line through the technical section of the track, it looks like.
Yeah, from here on out, not much point in trying to pass. All right, let's take a look at Putacek on that opening lap wreck and see if we can try and analyze what caused this. A number of cars, I believe, did get involved, but I wasn't able to count. Here we go. Here's the incident. And there is, well, yeah, I forgot about this. He was side by side going in, so maybe, I wonder if they just did not turn in right and someone made contact with the other.
Well, you can see Wojciech just trying to get back in line there a little bit, able to slot it. Oh, Wojciech just carries a little bit too much speed coming in to Piratella like that. That causes him to go sideways, and then you can see the absolute train wreck that follows. Just nowhere for those cars to go through a nearly flat-out corner. Maximum lateral grip there like Piratella.
Don't need to go to it, but Christopher Crook had a little bit of contact, popped into the air. He's had major damage and took a tow. This is the front leaders once again. Of course, the leaders would be in the front as David Burns is now at the point. Haflidason in 2nd. Saunders gets 3rd back from Jonk, who tried to challenge him. Now, will Jonk be able to pull the same move in reverse? Could he maybe get back up to the top spot?
Maybe. I don't know how aggressive he's going to be about it. I have to say that I thought Saunders was almost a little bit over-aggressive, a little too eager going into what was the 3rd lap at that point, but we'll have to see what shapes out here. They look a little bit more spaced out, although that is Haflidason making a move for Burns in the top space as there comes Saunders. They're going to go a little bit wheel by wheel into one. Saunders just going to be ahead coming out of Tamburello.
So that changes it around a little bit, but not quite like what we saw last time. Saunders looks to me to be the most aggressive of this group.
I very much agree with that, Joe. He's the one willing to take it 3 wide early on, and we are so used to in this series a lot of sort of gentleman's racing up front until we get into the last 5 laps. Well, if that is the unofficial agreement, nobody told Reese Saunders, because he is just absolutely bit between his teeth. If you give him an opportunity, he's going to take it.
So while all of this hasn't changed our order around much there at the front of the field, a quick mention, Josh Brain has been doing a phenomenal job. He's gone from 22nd to 12th, so a 10 position gain for that 9.46, and honestly towards the mid-pack too, which is not as easy as coming from the very back of the field. Here he is as we ride on board coming through Piratella.
Yeah, and he obviously was able to take advantage of a couple positions courtesy of that incident that we checked out with Wojciech Podacek, but a lot of this has just been good, solid driving by the driver of the 9.46. You see him now all up the tailpipe of Simone Zamolo here. May, if he gets this run at all, to be able to take something, a little bit of a look going down into Ravazza, if not for sure, down the front stretch.
He's very hard over the curbs, not shy about using those, which he definitely can. And these skippies, they can take a bit of a bump. He is close, but even if he wanted to go into Ravazza, I wouldn't advise it. I feel like he's got a better chance down to Tamburello.
Yeah, very much so. Tamburello is your better option, but sometimes if a driver makes a mistake coming out of it. And Joe, we've got a pass for the lead. That's Reese Saunders making a move on Michael Haflidason to take over control of this race.
Saunders wants to lead, and now he's finally got it. What can he do with it from here? Haflidason didn't really fight it. He just slotted back into second. Burns third, Yonk in fourth. Behind both of them, Lucal and Lucetta, I think, are playing a thinker's game. I think they're saving fuel back here because they haven't made any moves besides these 4 in front of them. They've just been hanging out and watching it all unfold.
Well, and Joe, I have to say, I think at this point, Burns and Yonk may be doing the same thing. We saw on that last lap, neither of them really wanted to make a hard charge up to the front. I think they recognized some of the aggression here today from Saunders. Haflidason showed a little bit of it as well. And so Burns and Yonk just staying back a little bit, as you said, saving some fuel and letting the race come to them over the next 30 minutes.
Acqua Minerale, the tricky braking zone. Everybody trying to avoid going wide. You can get a slowdown penalty there if you're not careful. Is that lap traffic in front of them? Yeah, that's Beifeld already up the road. Depending on where they catch him, that could be bad news. But if they get him on the front stretch, that'll be a lot easier.
It will, but we talked about these skippies able to take those curbs. Reese Saunders taking every bit of curb he could coming out of Variante Alta, really getting the car sideways. Little bit of Dyson in the back there. You saw Haflidason poke his nose out ever so slightly, just trying to intimidate the 27. Let's see what their run here out of Ravazza 2 looks like.
Ooh, and immediately swinging off to the side. Almost looks like, well, Saunders doesn't have much speed. I'm not sure if that was a mistake or he was intentionally trying to pull out of the way of that group or what. Regardless, the result is he's looking like he's going to be 4th now.
Yeah, it's a big drop down from him. I'm just checking out his onboard here really quickly to see if there was anything. That looked fairly deliberate, Joe, so I think that may have been a fuel calculation.
And he'll be 3rd instead. Behind them, we've had a lot of fun between Leach, Sauer, and Dancy. They have been swapping positions just as much as those top 4. You see them on screen now. That's Leach in the front of them. In the middle is Sauer. Dancy running P9.
Yeah, just nose to tail here. Everybody waiting. Ooh, big jump of the curb there. So taking a lot of that beating. And as you said, the suspensions on these skippies are relatively sturdy, especially compared to some of their step-up models like the Formula 3 machine here on iRacing or even the Indy Pro 2000. These suspensions can take a little bit more of a beating than they can.
Up into Piratella. Ooh, Sauer getting very close to the back of Leach here. But again, we're not expecting much in the way of passes, at least on this back half of the circuit. They're putting some pressure on the 502. Now he backs off of him down into Acqua Minerale, giving him a little bit of space.
Yeah, we have seen a pass or two go down into that corner, but really just the nature of the braking zone makes it so incredibly difficult to do. So I think it's a good play here from Sauer, just backing off a little bit and seeing what comes to him.
All right, so those three stay in line. Let's jump a little ahead of them back to our top four. Haflidazen pulls away a little bit, but not enough to really do much. And in front of him now, kicking up some dirt and gravel, is Beifeld. This is, yes, perfectly done by the 06. He sees him coming. He's going to get out of the way.
Yeah, that's a good call from him. A very easy way to do it. Now, this is David Burns tailing in the wake of Haflidazen. We had seen him a lot, like to be able to sit back and save some fuel. He's going to try to do this the long way around into Tamburello. He's going to have it. I think Haflidazen just kind of let him take it there. There you see behind Saunders lining up a little bit. He could potentially have a run down into Villeneuve, but as I said, that's never a really easy place to overtake. And indeed, I think everybody's going to stay in line here for the moment.
Even though we've only had one car be lapped, I'm looking through the rest of the field. There is a wide disparity between the leaders and everybody else. Once you get back to Wilford, who I mentioned was in no man's land, it's already 9 seconds to the next car. That's Imola in 11th. So not sure if it was kind of facilitated by the wreck we saw in lap 1, but this is a monstrous pace difference between the leaders and everybody else.
Well, Joe, just kind of looking over last lap and best lap times, really and truly, the leaders are putting in 103s. That's what they're able to do. When you get down to 12th or 13th, we're looking at 104, 105. So there's a second and a half difference across the field. Oh, a little bit of a look there from Saunders going into Alta, but nothing's going to happen there. But that's kind of to be expected with the way Imola is. Imola is a driver's circuit. It's incredibly technical, and it's incredibly difficult. So you're very much seeing the cream rise to the top here.
Oh, no. We had a wreck between Pete Thomas, Giros, and Nick Carty. This was about 50 seconds ago into Tosa, unfortunately. All three of them getting involved. And I think it was started from Giros, who made an ambitious move here. This is the 36 we're looking for. There we go. Yeah, we've got them coming up towards the corner. Yeah, he's going to have a great run on that Williams liveried car. Thinks he can make something work, and unfortunately it all kind of unravels.
Yeah, definitely an ambitious move there, but definitely a little bit of a chop down as well. So fault a little bit all to blame there.
As Leach and Sauer with Dancy there coming into the first corner. We had a change around that was a little bit less decided between our top four. Burns, Saunders, Haflidazen were kind of side by side into Tamburello that time.
Yeah, this group looking a lot more racy than we're used to seeing that leading pack. Whoa, Reese Saunders with a very late apex there, going down into Tosa, almost gets his nose cut off by David Burns.
I wonder if we could ride on board with Lucal here to see not only a good view of all the fighting in front of him, but to see how much he's lifting and coasting through this more technical portion. Because yes, of course, he's not doing much on the front stretch, but if he's getting pulled along here, this is going to be a huge advantage for him.
Most certainly. He'll definitely be able to do a little bit of lifting and coasting, putting the clutch in, allowing that to happen. Here he comes down that little mini straight. Let's listen.
Seems significant there. Then I guess that could add up over time. In front of him, a little bit of a run from Saunders on Burns down to Ravazza. Gets tight up behind that rear wing. And we're going to come onto the front stretch. We're almost exactly halfway through. Who decides now is a good time to pit in? None of these. No, David Burns will. And he's going to be joined by Haflidazen.
Very, very late dive down pit lane from David Third Degree Burns. I think that was a little bit of gamesmanship, trying to throw some guys off the scent of what he was doing. Now, the front four have been able to keep relatively close, so they'll be able to conserve a little bit more fuel here as well.
But I guess the important thing here is that he's got a buddy in Haflidason, so those two can work together, and they hit their pit stalls almost in sync with one another as you see the clocks tick up.
Indeed, no tires here taken by these drivers. It's a fuel-only stop. There's Burns out underway. There's Haflidason out underway. Only about a 0.4 of a second difference between the two. And now you just have to wait for this interminably long pit lane to be able to get back onto the power.
Only a couple other drivers that are doing the same. Opstead, Lodin, not seen. Oh, a few of our back markers, Bladon, Mild, and Anderson, all coming in for stops. So latter half of the field seems to like the idea of a bit of an alternate strategy call to get themselves some track position. This is our front group, which is taking the traditional strategy.
They are. It's the one we see often employed here in the Absolute Beginners League. 9 times out of 10, guys try to stay out as long as possible, not go for the undercut, instead go for the overcut. We'll have to see what this plays out here. Saunders, Young, Lucal, Lucetta, your top 4 in that leading group.
Lucal and Lucetta probably saving the most among them. Where are our leaders? Are they out in traffic? No, actually, they come out in pretty clear air. They see on screen now. They do have one car in front of them. That is Grula, who has not pitted yet, but might be another lap or two before they actually catch him.
Yeah, they'll have a little bit of time. Just keeping out of the corner of my eye, an eye on those leaders. Looks like none of our top 4 have dove into the pits.
Oh, Zauer just threw a fake, though. He was taking some NASCAR inspiration there. The 14 acted like he was going to come in and then dodged back out. That actually slowed him up a little bit, and Leach will be able to not only use the slipstream, but that extra momentum to make an easy pass. Now that coming out, that is Lodin, so that is a lap down car on a different strategy.
As we look out of the tailpipe here of Leach, that is indeed just getting a full mirror view of Ludwig Zauer, trying to see if he can force the 14 or the 502 into any sort of mistake here.
So far, none forthcoming, and they're going to work their way towards Tosa, the heavy uphill. More lap traffic being caught by our overall leaders. Pete Thomas trying to stay out of the way. And you might actually be able to see him soon because he looks well off the pace here of that next group of 3 that we were looking at. But we are now firmly focused on our top 4. Is Lucetta dropping back? Lucetta and Luca look like they're struggling a little.
Yeah, indeed. Though I will say, Just Jonk looking very, very much in control. He was able to go purple on that last lap, setting the fastest lap of the race with a 2:03.314. So he's definitely got some speed wound up in that 13 machine, but starting to distance himself from Lucal. I have to imagine here, Joe, that if we don't see a pit stop on this lap, we will see it out of these leaders within the next 2.
Most likely. In fact, it's the top 13 out on the track right now that have yet to come in and pit. So some of them will be losing positions from the others that have already taken that strategy. Anybody going to go to the left of our screen? Yes. This is Just Jonk, who is going to come in, but by himself.
Now, that may not be great if he loses a draft partner. It's all going to depend on where Burns and Haflidason come out.
I see Leach in, Dancy is in. So those two join together. Zauer stays out. So there's Burns' pit time compared to Just Jonk. Ooh, spun car in front of him. That could cost him a little bit if they hesitated.
Yeah, just a little bit. Jonk out and on his way. Burns is right now coming through that first kink on the straightaway. I think Jonk may have him covered off.
Yeah, if he doesn't come out ahead, he's going to be very close to him. There they are. They've got more speed than the 13 as he starts to pick up pace. He actually may have put a bit of a gap on David.
Very much did, Joe. As they come out, it looks like it's about a 2-second gap. Not entirely surprising. Just Young stationary in his pit stall for about 3/4 of a tenth quicker and about a second faster overall in the pit lane itself.
Can he use this to gap himself from Burns? Has he been quicker this whole time? Has just been laying low amongst the front runners? Because I think, yeah, he should be out of the slipstream at 2 seconds ahead of David Burns, who still is towing along Halfledace, and we're still waiting on 7 of our lead cars, Bernardi in there as well, I can see, to come in. And this is that front group, Sanders, Lucal, Lucetta. They've got a car who has taken a stop with them, so that's not part of that Group 4 position. One more is going to come in, this time Lucal.
This is really fascinating. Big lock up there from Lucal. Hopefully he was able to get that car slowed down in time. But this is really fascinating, Joe. We haven't seen this much of a variety of pit stops out of the Absolute Beginners League in a very long time. It's presenting a very fascinating race for us here today.
Yeah, and Lucal and Zauer both in. Wilfert also pitting. Lucetta and Saunders stay out. Now, we saw Lucal saving fuel, at least we're pretty sure. Will he have a quicker one? Jonk right now has one of the fastest pit stop times with a 13.6, but he also was trying to lead for much of it. No, Lucal is long. He is a 16.2. Where are our leaders? Zauer, now here comes Jonk. Lucal just going by. Jonk at a full head of steam. Yeah, he's getting absolutely whipped.
He is, but if he can stay in front, and Burns gets him as well. I was going to say David Burns is going to be praying that Lucal was able to come out a little bit faster, use him as a little bit of a leapfrog mechanism to get closer up to Just Jonk. But now it looks like everybody's up to speed. Lucal about a half a second behind David Burns.
Only 2 drivers left that have made it to lap 13, Saunders and Lucetta. There we see them, and they've got, oh wow, this is a lot of lap traffic. This is honestly looking rather confusing, and Lucetta is sliding into the corner, having to weave past Nick Anderson, who is a lapped vehicle. That cost him half a second up to Lucetta. Going to take another look at it. So there we go.
Oh, so very lucky there for Lucetta. That was just absolutely terrifying.
Well, it wasn't totally lucky for him. He lost a lot of time. Oh, wow, he's making a bunch back, being aggressive on the entry compared to Saunders. So now we keep an eye out for Jonk, Burns, Lucal, Halfledazen, who were all racing these two. But they are all now very spread apart. Burns and Lucal seem to have teamed up along with Halfledazen, so it's a trio trying to catch the likes of Just Jonk, who still holds a 2-second advantage.
And they are just now, that train, making their way through Ravazza 1 and into Ravazza 2 as Saunders comes to a rest, as with Lucetta in his pit stall. There they come. They are now onto the main straightaway. And there you have Jonk on the way. Saunders, that's Lucetta. Lucetta with a quick stop.
Very quick. 13.6 for him. This might keep him up with Just Jonk. Just is now past the start-finish line. Lucetta's out of there as he picks up speed. It's going to be close. Just is by. Lucetta is going to bridge the gap between Burns and the 13.
That's Jonk.
Jonk takes a cut course penalty as he goes through the chicane, and Lucetta is going to be our new leader.
Oh my goodness gracious, I don't know what happened there with Just Jonk, but Lucetta inherits the lead of the race, but Just now going to be absolutely furious with himself. He's going to be driving with the red mist as we tick down under 12 minutes to go.
And just like that, this absolutely will make it a pack as it was before. They're only one they are missing. No, they've got everybody. Reese Saunders is going to be on the tail of the group. So the top 6 that we have been watching were not able to make any sort of difference with those pit stops. So they've all wound up in the draft train for the final 10 minutes.
Absolutely incredible, Joe. Everybody able to slot back in to make this a thrilling race. Junk here doing a great job sticking up the tailpipe of Manuel Lucetta, really trying to hold on here. And this is allowed, crucially, where Lucetta came out, it is allowed for Burns to be able to catch back up to this field. He's now right up behind Junk as well.
Amazingly, in all of this, we've only lost Nylander, Potocek, Thomas, Crook, and I see Bladon, unfortunately, now out of the race. But we still got 30 drivers racing here at Imola, as there's a little bit of a peak from Just down towards Ravazza. So put yourself in the shoes of everybody behind Lucetta from here to the end, DJ. Do you go on the attack immediately, or do you wait?
You know, it depends on where I am in this line. If I'm Junk, I want to hold position and be relatively aggressively defensive. I don't want to lose that second place position. Everybody else back, I want to put myself into second or third, and I think that's exactly what a couple people have in mind. Junk taking a big chunk of the curb. He is going to be able to pull ahead ever so slightly, but there is Haflidason trying to go for a 2-1. He's going to be side by side with Lucetta. How do they not touch coming through Tamburello?
It was oh so close, and that's going to give second to Michael. Just really wants to lead, still side by side behind them, Saunders and Lukel. This is usually tricky down through Villeneuve, and they're going to get single file, but I think a cut back for Lukel might give him a shot into Tosa. He'll have to do it the long way around, or go for the over-under once again, and he has to stay put in 6th in the end.
Yeah, that momentum there from Saunders, just able to carry him through a better line on that corner. I've got to say, you know, Joe, in the first part of this race, we were talking about just how aggressive Reese Saunders was looking. I think Michael Haflidason is taking that mantle up on his own. Very, very aggressive moves going down into Tamburello, and it showed. I think the 81 has got something to prove here today.
Yeah, remember, he's not as much in the, in fact, I don't think he is in the championship hunt at all. So this is just for pride for Michael Haflidason. Not so for guys like Lucetta and Burns and Junk. Let's not forget, he's 3rd in the championship. He wants those max points.
He is indeed. Everybody very, very close here. Lucetta poking his nose out a whole bunch on Haflidason, I think trying to get in his head ever so slightly. Single file through Ravazza 1 and more than likely into Ravazza 2. Little bit of a wiggle coming into the corner there from Lucetta, but now it's Draft City. Let's see what happens.
Last time it was Just who had the slipstream and decided to barge his way up to the front, but he's going to be giving the toe to everybody behind. Haflidason under attack from Lucetta, who's going to get himself to the inside. Is he going to be boxed in? Yes, he is. Junk is there, and that means Haflidason now has the advantage. Another car steaming up the inside. That's Saunders. Saunders could maybe get into second instead of Haflidason. It's tight. He's still side by side coming off of Tamburello. And are they going to continue this into Villeneuve? I said this tends to be a little bit dangerous.
And they're very late on the brakes was Saunders. He's now going to be disadvantaged coming out of the end of it. There's the contact. Haflidason and Saunders. And I think they caught Lukel at the end.
Yep, and I think Lucetta and Burns intentionally backed up the entry to that corner. They saw what was happening. They gave themselves space to react, and that allowed them through. Unfortunately, this has cut that lead battle in half.
Oh, absolute heartbreaker there for half of this leading train. Just a little over-eager, a little early, and fireworks erupting.
Let's take another look at it. A lot of damage for a number of those cars, unfortunately. You can see them side by side coming in. Watch behind them. Watch how early they brake.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was absolutely brilliant there from our two title contenders. I think they just could tell that Saunders and Haflidason were getting a little too aggressive this early, wanted to give them plenty of space if they did indeed make a mistake. But, you know, Joe, however exciting it may be to watch those drivers that go for the overtake, there is a reason why David Burns and mainly Lucetta are in the championship conversation right now, and it's because of heads-up, intelligent, brainy driving like that.
I mean, what's wild is the top three in points are now the top three on track, as Saunders is not giving up on things. He's still fighting side by side with Zauer off of Ravazza. Just came from Spa, and I've got Ravage on the brain. And he's not going to be quick in a straight line. Yeah, I think Saunders is suffering, easily passed by Lukel and Zauer.
Yeah, he's lost that front nose cone on the car, and that will slow him down ever so slightly. You see there, even with the draft, just not able to do anything. They're a great angle. You can see the damage. That pointy little nose cone just missing off of the 27.
At the front, Jonk is still ahead of Lucetta with Burns in third. So will there be less dicing about with this trio? Because you pointed out a little bit earlier, DJ, these are the three spots that you essentially wanted to be in.
Exactly, and now I think what you're going to start to see is, now that everything's calmed down a little bit, this is where a little bit more gamesmanship starts to come into it. I think for Burns and Lucetta, they're going to start figuring out closing distances. They're going to start thinking about, okay, do I want to be in the lead or do I want to be in second, coming off of Ravazza 2 to take the checkered flag? They're going to have to figure out where they want to make the pass, and Jonk has got to be doing that same calculus backwards and where he needs to be defensive.
Oh, he was definitely defensive coming off of the Acqua Minerale portion of the track, then came back to the racing line. Sad news for Haflidason fans. He had to retire. Too much damage, unfortunately.
And he was the one that really came out the worst from that. You saw that big impact with the rear of the car. Lucetta looking a little bit aggressive here. Tighter of a turn in coming into Ravazza 1. They're going to be just at about 4 minutes when they take to the flag here. So I'm going to imagine 2 to go as they come to the line.
It might be a little bit tight. I think you're right. Yeah, 2 to go. They're not going to have quite enough. Here we go. Lucetta is going to duck to the inside. He uses the slipstream, decides now is as good a time as any to try and lead. Jonk is only going to lose one spot. Behind them, David Burns just sits back in third.
Well, now, Joe, that was crucial. With the run Lucetta had there, that was an ability. He was able to be ahead by the time they got to the start-finish line. So this is where that calculus is going to start coming into play. And watch, keep a very, very cagey eye here on the 125. I don't think he is going to make a move until that white flag lap, because he knows exactly when he's got to do it. And if he makes it before, he'll be a sitting duck.
I never made it to calculus, so this is all beyond me as the drivers now approach Piratella. And Jonk, who let Lucetta by, will he be setting him up? Will he attack? And then, you know, we've talked so much about that run down to Tamburello using the slipstream to try and make that attack. Could we potentially see someone get aggressive and maybe try and make a move elsewhere in the lap too?
We very well could. I think that, you know, I mentioned at the top, going down into Ravazza is a real possibility. I don't anticipate anything going on into Acqua Minerale, although that's normally one of the areas you see. Yeah, maybe if we see a mistake, you could see it into Variante Alta. But another wrench being thrown into the works here. Steve Durr and Andre Solander, that's 26th and 27th on the track, only about 3 seconds up the road from this leading trio.
Will they spot this, or will they even get involved? I think the white flag this time by should be coming. Running laps of about 2:03. It'll be close amongst them. There it is. All right, so white flag is indeed coming out for the drivers. as it's less than a lap's worth. Jonk wants to get in front. He's going to take to the inside. Is this the move that will decide the race? Beside them, they've also got Burns. He's going to try to get himself into second, maybe first, but he's boxed in yet again down into Tamburello. Jonk takes the lead. It is Burns who is in second and Lucetta who is in third. Here's where it starts to get dicey, and it's a great run off the corner. Does Burns try and take it? No, he's just covering off Lucetta.
He is indeed. I don't think he wants to be there. Ooh, Lucetta making the move into Villeneuve, Joe. A little bit of predictive thinking from you, making an aggressive move in a place we wouldn't normally see it.
Wow. That is not easy to get done. It lost him a little bit of time to Lucetta. He's going to have to hustle for the rest of the lap, though.
Yeah, he really, really is, but he is very, very close. What this scrap has done, though, is it's allowed for Just Jonk to pull ahead a little bit. But remember, Burns and Lucetta, this isn't just for bragging rights. This is ostensibly the championship on the line. Wide run there from Lucetta, compromised him ever so slightly, but able to carry more momentum out of the corner.
Manuel trying to see if he can do something to Jonk here at the end. Sending it very hard down into Aquamino Raleigh as we ride on board with David Burns. Defensive move from both of our first and second place drivers. Now back to the racing line. There's also the run down to the finish. There's a bit of a slipstream. If he is close enough, could he snipe it at the line? Lucetta has won 2 races so far this season compared to the one we see for our other driver down there in Perez, who is not even in the championship hunt. Going to look to the inside, and it looks to the outside, rather. He's going to try the long way around. Will he not even need the slipstream? He goes the long way around. Lucetta with an incredible move as they come off the corner. Jonk's going to have a little slipstream, but I don't think it's going to be enough. David Burns as well, trying to pull in. He's trying to keep him from getting through there to the line, 3 wide, and it is going to be Lucetta who takes the win. Jonk in second, and Burns in third. Amazing.
Absolutely incredible run there as there's Zauer coming to the line, absolutely neck and neck. He's going to be able to, Luco's going to pip him to the line there for 5th.
Nick Carty side by side with Stipek. This is for the last spot within the top 10. Oh, slipping up a little bit. Carty can't keep the power down, and that's going to bite him as Stipek is well ahead. He'll get a bit of the slipstream. I don't think this is going to be enough. So Stipek takes 10th as we now glance back at Dancy. McMullen also pulling, and not to be. I think we got a bit of a fight for 18th with Alpstead and Bernardi.
Do indeed. That's Bernardi chasing, trying to get him down. A little bit of a squiggly run there off the corner for Alpstead, but I don't think Bernardi is going to be close enough to get that gap down in time. Indeed, flying to the line right now, and that is going to be Alpstead to hold it.
20th. Ooh, was that contact? Almost looked like contact with the wall for Jan Miles. And Ryan Walker, ooh, almost manages to get up to Giros, but Christopher is going to take 20th. I think that is most of our battles, and the last one on the lead lap will be Steve Durr, who didn't get lapped in the end. So we're going to take a quick break with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so don't go away. Welcome back to Imola. We saw one of the most incredible finishes I think the Absolute Beginners League has ever witnessed, with the leaders being split by less than a tenth, barely half a tenth at the line. But it was Lucetta who claimed his third win of the season, extending his points lead. Just Jonk was to the inside of them, and he took second with about 2/100ths between himself and David Burns, who finished in third. There is your podium right there. Andrew Leach up from 10th. This is something that we didn't get to cover enough, but man, this is a great run for fourth place for him. Eric Lukal was P5 and Ludwig Zauer was 6. Saunders took P7, unfortunately getting involved in an incident with Wilfert, who I mentioned was kind of in no man's land for much of it, did climb to 8th. Josh Brain was 9th, and Stipek took 10th.
In 11th was Nick Carty, followed by Joshua Dancy, Joe Teller McMullen, with Simone Zamolo and Christian Gruler rounding out your top 15. Behind him in 16th was Andrea Spizzale, followed by Kai Alpstead, who was able to hold off Filippo Alesso Bernardi in 18th. Christopher Giros, who was running a little bit higher earlier in the race, came home in 19th, followed by Ryan Walker in 20th.
21st went to Jan Mild, who was so close behind him as Thomas Kick was 22nd. You've got Nick Anderson in 23rd and Klaus Lodin in 24th. Last two on the lead lap were Durr and Neptune actually made it. We didn't count him up to 26th. Then it was Solander a lap down in 27th, right behind the leaders watching that unfold. Van Emmerseel was 28th. And then you get into the DNFs with Haflidason, Beifel, Bladon, Crook, Thomas, Putacek, and Nylander. That takes us to our third place finisher for this evening, David Burns. My goodness, what a finish that was. And before we get to that, David, I want to talk about what put you in that position. There was an incident towards the end of the race through Villeneuve that you had managed to avoid. How much were you actually, from my perspective, it looked like you were backing up to give some space before that happened. Was that actually the case?
Yeah, it kind of was, and it's no offence to Michael, but I know how Michael races, and he doesn't back out of corners. If you're too wide with him into a corner, he'll stick it too wide. And to give them their dues, they both gave each other room, but there was a tiny little bit of net code that made their wheels come together. And I saw it coming. I knew it was coming, and I actually feel bad because I was trying to warn Eric behind, but I just didn't have time. I thought I've got to avoid, so I had to swing right to try and avoid, and the poor Eric, he got a clip. But thankfully, Eric was able to finish in P4, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's go to the end now. You're coming down to the final lap, and I believe you were third in line coming to the white flag. Is that where you wanted to be, or did you prefer a different position?
No, I was actually hoping for at minimum P2, because going into the last lap into the first corner, I was happy at being P2, and the problem was I lifted because I had a chance of trying to go too wide with Just into the turn 3, and I lifted slightly, and it gave Manuel the chance to get around me. So no, it wasn't where I hoped to be. And going into the last few corners, I didn't think I had a chance, but when Manuel made that move, which was a really good move, I didn't expect him to do it, to go too wide into the last two corners and the back marker as well. I thought, I've got a chance. So I had full throttle going through the last corner, and it's not wise, but it just wasn't enough. But what an epic finish. That was a really good race.
It definitely had us out of our seats and cheering in the end. Now, the bad news is, with you finishing third, this extends the gap up to Lucetta, and you've got one more round. Heading off to Hockenheim, which is a new track. In fact, this might be the first time it shows up in the series. Do you think you can do anything to overcome Lucetta?
I've got to be honest. He's so consistent, and he's such a good racer that it's doubtful. I'll try my best, but I think I need a bit of luck in something, going his bad in pit stop or something like that. And also, I don't know Hockenheim at all. I've never driven it in any track, so I've got a lot of practice to put in.
Oh, well, I guess, yeah, start using those 2 weeks early. As David, is there anybody you'd like to thank for this podium today?
My fellow admins and all the guys that race with us, because we all put on an absolutely fantastic league. It's really good fun.
It's fun to watch. That was David Burns in third today. Unfortunately, we don't have either of our other podium finishers to talk to us today. Would have loved to hear their perspective on that just stunning finish. But that's going to take us to closing with thank yous, of course, to the Absolute Beginners League for bringing us back for another season of coverage. But also, we want to thank the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcasts listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, DJ, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check out our social media through the outlets listed at the bottom of the screen. And if you'd like to support us, check out the merchandise store. That's at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. We got a link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment, because the next weekend, or next week that we're doing this 2 weeks from now, will be Hockenheim, Sunday, May 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern. Also, we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen. Check those out and mark them down on your calendar. You may notice that coming up in a few hours, we've got the Precision Racing League's NASCAR Cup Series at Darlington at 8:30 p.m. Eastern to finish off your Mother's Day celebrations. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.